So this is topic 1.4 on cardiovascular diseases and disorders. It says, what is cardiovascular disease? Cardiovascular disease is one of many disorders that affect the heart and or blood vessels. Heart disease, strokes, and varicose veins are all types of cardiovascular disease. Some terminology. So we've got these two words you may have heard of before. Cholesterol. Well, cholesterol is a waxy fat-like substance in the cell membrane of every cell in your body and in food from animal sources. Too much of it is bad for us. Plaque, a semi-hardened accumulation of substance originally suspended in a fluid. So plaque is basically fat as well, or other substances that sort of accumulate on the edges of your blood vessels, and they tend to narrow the flow. So regular blood flow would be on the left, and an artery that is narrowed due to plaque filling up the walls, it's going to offer a less of a space that the blood can flow through. So low density lipoprotein, or LDL, this is what we'll likely always refer to it as, is LDL, is a blood protein that carries cholesterol in the bloodstream from the liver to the rest of the body. Too much LDL in the blood leads to deposits on the walls of the arteries, and this is known as bad cholesterol. So this blood protein, we don't want to have too much of it, or that'll be considered bad cholesterol. High density LDL, or lipoprotein, which is HDL, is a blood protein that carries cholesterol in the bloodstream from the body cells to the liver. So from our body cells to our liver is HDL, and then from the liver to the rest of your body is LDL. High levels of HDL in the blood means that it is less likely that deposits will form on the wall of the arteries, and this is known as good cholesterol. Okay, so that is bad cholesterol is when you have a lot of proteins from your liver to the rest of your body, and HDL, or high density lipoprotein, or good cholesterol, is when you have a blood protein that is going from your body cells to your liver. Okay. So that liver is the one that's going to sort of filter it, and if you're getting a lot of cholesterol still going from your liver to your body, then that is not good. They can do a blood test and figure that out, if you have high cholesterol or not. So here's some diseases that we can talk about here, I guess, or some of the ones that may be something that you could come across. The first one is atherosclerosis, which is the hardening of the arteries due to accumulation of fatty deposits. So as far as this would be considered a blood vessel disease. I guess they want us just to put check marks or whatever. There's little lines there, but that is a blood vessel disease because it's affecting the arteries, and arteries are our blood vessels. Okay. Coronary heart disease. This is restricted blood flow from the coronary arteries, resulting in chest pain and a heart attack. I don't know if I told you what coronary arteries are, but those are the arteries and veins that bring blood and take blood away from the cells of the heart. So like the heart is a muscle, and it needs to have oxygen and carbon dioxide gas exchange happening for it. It's the one that is giving it to the rest of the body, so it needs also to be looked after. So the coronary arteries are like the arteries you see on the outside of the heart, those blood vessels, and they are what gives your heart blood flow. And if you have restricted blood flow to those, then that can cause a heart attack. So that's definitely known as heart disease. heart attack as well would be considered heart disease. It's literally got heart in the name. This is a clot in your coronary artery, which cuts off the blood flow. So when you actually have a heart attack, coronary heart disease could lead to a heart attack, but not necessarily. A stroke is a sudden loss of brain function caused by the interruption in the blood flow to the brain. So a stroke is something that is affecting the blood flow in one of your blood vessels. When we talk about strokes, they normally are arteries that are affected as well. An aneurysm is a bulging or weakness in the wall of an artery or vein. So this too would be a blood vessel disease because it's all working on arteries or veins. A valvular heart disease, this would be affecting your heart. This is a disease of heart valves leading to the narrowing, leaking, or improper closing of valves. So when we're looking at the heart, knowing that it is pumping you hear that dub-dub noise. Well, sometimes those valves aren't closing properly and blood is backflowing where it shouldn't. Septal heart defects. This is opening within the septum that allows blood to flow between the left and right ventricles of the heart. This would be known as a heart disease. So yeah, that's that. If we were the heart doesn't really look like that, but in between there's like a wall that separates, I guess, the one side from the other. That part is known as the septum. And that's, if we have a break in that septum, then that's going to cause problems with the separation of our oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. The cramping pain a person feels caused by the narrowing of blood vessels that supply blood to the heart is known as angina. So this is a type of feeling, more like some people might think that they're having a heart attack, but it's just angina. It's like a narrowing of your blood vessels, not getting quite enough to the heart. So how does a blood clot happen? Well, when plaque and buildup in the arteries become hard and jagged, platelets that are passing through can be ruptured, which release the thread-like fibrins, which start the clotting process. So if we have a blood vessel and the walls we saw on that other slide, they're sort of yellowish. If those are going to narrow the blood vessel and then a platelet comes through, it gets stuck, the platelet starts to break open, and then it will start to clot in that area. Once the fibrin has formed its web, red blood cells can no longer get to where they need to go. So our blood flow that's coming through there, it can't. If the red blood cells are blocked from getting to the heart, this would result in a heart attack. If the red blood cells are blocked from getting to the brain, this would be known as a stroke. Okay? So any sort of clot, if it's in your brain, it's a stroke. If it's to your heart, then it is a heart attack. Okay? So that's the major difference between those. So fats and cholesterol in the bloodstream, this is an interesting note. Inuit people typically get 50% of their calories from fat. So how is it possible that they have a very low occurrence of cardiovascular disease? Well, almost 75% of cholesterol is actually manufactured in your liver. So it's not so much about cutting out all cholesterol from your diet, it's about the kind of cholesterol you eat. So that good and bad cholesterol, if Inuit people are living on a lot of fat, It's obviously HDL fat, so fats that the liver is going to not produce. It's going from our body cells to our liver, and then our liver is breaking it down. So it's the proper type of fat. Types of food you would actually get this bad cholesterol would be like all the foods you would think would be delicious. All those like fatty foods, fried foods, those are going to be the ones that are going to give you that LDL, the bad cholesterol. So the answer here lies partly in the type of fats that are eaten. Saturated fats are only single bonded between carbon atoms, so it's difficult to break, leading to an increase in LDL. So a saturated fat, remembering back to some of the chemistry we did, they only have single bonds. So it's really hard to break this apart. It's not a polar molecule. So it leads to basically LDL, which is that bad cholesterol. Unsaturated fat, which contains one or more double or triple bonds between the carbons. It's easier to break down because it has open ends, basically. So if this C has those two double bonds and it has this, because there's no H over here, it gives a way to break down the molecule. It leaves open ends, and that's known as an unsaturated fat. So these unsaturated fats are easier to break down in the liver, and they will increase in HDL, so that good cholesterol. So that's typically what the Inuit people would be eating, is fats that are unsaturated. And then the worst thing is trans fats, which are unsaturated fat that go through a hydrogenation process, which adds hydrogens to them, and this leads to increase of LDL. You guys have probably heard of trans fats. On many products, they actually say like we have 0 trans fats. Trans fats were a lab-created thing, and they are really bad for you, but taste really good, and that's why people eat them. This is a picture of a unsaturated versus saturated fat. So if we're looking at the difference between these are the types of fats we would want. Would be the olive oil as opposed to the butter. The butter is very difficult, really big molecule, hard to break apart. This one, unsaturated, because it's got that really easy place to break that molecule apart, it tends to be an unsaturated fat. So if you're going to eat fats, this one, definitely better for you. So here's a picture of some of the fats and fatty acids. So we've got our unsaturated fats on the left-hand side. We've got mono unsaturated and polyunsaturated. Our mono unsaturated fats are like olive oil, peanuts, and almonds. All very good for us in moderation, obviously. And then our polysaturated fats are our fish and shellfish, or fish oils, our marine mammals, so sort of animals from the sea, flaxseed, soy oil, walnuts, and canola. And then our omega-6 fatty acids are corn oil and sunflower. And then to make some of these industrially, they'll take sunflower corn oil and they will hydrogenate it, so hydrogenated fatty acids. And that will make particular things like vegetable oil that's hydrogenated, shortening, sticks of butter, or margarine, many processed foods, many fast foods, deep fried foods, and commercially baked foods. They raise your LDL and lower your HDL. So we always want our HDL to be higher. And then our saturated fats at the top, those would be animal fats, lard, butter, cheese, egg yolks. So even these ones at the top, those are going to be better for you than those industrially created trans fats. So when you think about it, it's better for you to eat like whole butter and stuff like that than it is to eat margarine, like in the long run, just because of the LDL versus HDL. Okay. So it says, although there's lots of information in this table, there's some trends worth noting. The fats on the right have negative effects on your blood cholesterol levels. The fats and fatty acids on the left have positive effects. The staple food in the traditional Inuit diet is marine mammals and fish, which are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, and these substances have a positive effect on blood cholesterol levels. So if you're looking to become more healthier, switching to eating more seafood, canola oils, olive oils, stuff like that, as opposed to butter and deep fried goods, hydrogenated oils. So certain fats, like essential fatty acids, are essential for good health. They help form cell membranes, they help with brain and nerve function, and they help produce certain hormones. Omega-3 and omega-6 are obtained only through foods you eat, so your body cannot manufacture them. So if we look back to what omega-3 and 6, where do we get them? Those are right here. So we need to be eating fish, marine mammals, soy and flaxseed, sunflower oils, stuff like that. Canola oil, I mean, that's in lots of our food, but definitely something that we need to have to get those omegas. Oh, it tells us here. So an omega-3 is a certain type of omega-3 fatty acid that comes from marine sources. They actually help the fish and marine mammals survive in cold weather. Research indicates that the particular omega-3 fatty acids may provide the following protective effects to our cardiovascular system. So by having these, they help prevent chaotic beating of the heart, the largest cause of death for people who have already suffered a heart attack. They reduce clotting of the blood. They protect against progression of atherosclerosis by reducing harmful plaques. They reduce inflammation, especially associated with atherosclerosis in your coronary arteries. They help make arteries more supple and elastic, and they cause slight reductions in blood pressure. So me having high blood pressure, this is important that I am getting fish in my diet. So now I feel like I should go eat fish tonight. Risk factors of heart disease, well, to be older than 65, gives you a risk. Family history of cardiovascular disease, a diet high in cholesterol, a diet high in saturated fats, being overweight, little physical activity, high blood pressure, being a smoker, having a lot of stress, and using alcohol, so excessive alcohol use. Oops. So there's a question for practice on page 54 that I would like you to do for this section. Okay? So that's it for our 1.4 section.